Now without further ado, James.
James Rapien used to be the Guardians beat reporter, worked with us at the Fan. Now he's the Bengals beat reporter, Locked On Bengals. He's the preeminent Bengals guy. Your guy, Ben Baby, they fight. I think they're going to get into a big boxing match. Are they racing? What are they doing?
Wait, James. Yeah, what's this with Ben? Ben's my guy from Texas.
Joe Mixon hates Ben Baby. Oh. His agent, or does he hate you? I can't remember.
No, he hates Ben Baby.
I mean, he may hate both of us, but one thing is clear. Is that I would whoop Ben Baby in a race. That would not be a race. I'm closer to Mixon speed than I am Ben Baby's. So
wow.
I could be holding a baby and beat Ben Baby in a race. So we could leave that alone.
Can we
serious trash talk?
Let's do a little keep cut trade. We had it just a second ago. You got to pick one or the other, keep cut or trade them. You got Jamar Chase. We had Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill. Which one would you keep? Which one would you cut? Which one would you trade?
I would keep Chase. He's the youngest. He might be the best by the end of the year. I would trade probably, I think Tyreek would have more value. I don't know. It's tough. Whoever I could get more for between Adams and Tyreek, I would trade. And so I'll just say Tyreek, and then I would cut Devontae.
Before we get back to the Bengals.
I know that's tough.
Yeah, right.
James, before we get back to the Bengals and the Bengals-Browns, we I don't know if you heard us just talking about Ohtani.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think he's going, and how much do you think he's going to get? What's your prediction?
I think he's going to get more. I know everyone's floating that 500, and I know that's a ton.
I thought it was more before this UCL. I would have said 600, but now with that injury, I think he gets knocked down.
That's true. It might, but it could it be like the Kevin Durant Brooklyn thing a few years ago in the NBA? I think Ohtani's in his own stratosphere almost. So I still think he might get that because there's one team that says he's still worth it, even with the injury.
What team
I would say 600. The Dodgers. Let's just go with the team that I think
the Dodgers do have the deepest pockets.
Well, James, I know we're on to talk Bengals here, and the question that all Cleveland Browns fans want to know right now is, how's Joe Burrow looking before this Week 1 matchup?
Well, he's looking fine. Now, I haven't seen him throw since before that Week 1 preseason game against the Packers, but I know he is throwing regularly. And so I expect Joe Burrow to be just fine for Week 1 and be ready to go for that huge matchup to start the season. And so we'll see. But to me, it's more about when do we start to see him practice. I think him practicing, even if it's just some light throwing in front of media, would be a big step. And so maybe we'll see that this coming week.
By the way, James, going back, I was joking about the Joe Mixon thing. But what actually happened that got him so worked up and got his agent should shut the hell up. But what happened?
Well,
I always thought Joe actually had a good relationship with the media there. What happened there exactly?
Well, he does, especially when we're not supposed to ask. Certain people aren't allowed to ask questions, and he gets a bunch of softball questions earlier this week, which is exactly what ended up happening. To be quite honest with you, but that said, I don't know exactly why he was mad with me. I was one of the 4 reporters that his agent named, which was very nice. I agree with you about the agent part of it. Even if I wrote something that was offensive, that happens all the time. Welcome to the industry. I don't know, but it's okay. All I did really was talk about the contract stuff all off season. And let me run this by you guys. Do you think Joe Mixon from afar would be worth $12.7 million from a cap hit perspective?
No.
Because I was very critical of that. No way. There you go.
Right,
so
no.
I didn't say anything no one else thought.
Yeah, if you're a player and you're an agent, you can't get worked up about that stuff. I mean, good for him. Like, he realized he didn't want to be out in free agency. He's still getting paid $6 million. Sure. That's a lot more than Kareem Hunt's going to make. I mean, so he did the wise thing.
Yeah.
He's
making more now than he would have had he hit the free agent market, no
100%.
doubt. I mean, the Bengals value him way more. And I praise that part of it, too. Maybe his friends or agent just didn't send Joe those
But,
notes.
James, you know this. Players only care about the bad stuff. You could say 99 good things about a player and one bad thing. They'll never say, well, thanks for all the good things you said about me. But they will always say, F you for saying that one bad thing about me, with almost no exceptions. Players are very, very rabbit ears.
James, we was talking about it. Me and Tyvis and Bull were talking about it the other day, and we were just going down like position group by position group, and we just talked about how closely the rosters are compared with the Bengals and the Browns. Obviously, the quarterback position is a question mark for us. and the Bengals have, solidified, that position. When you look at, and Tyvis brought up the secondary as a position where there's new guys rotating in and out. Do you think that is I wouldn't even say a question mark for you guys, but is that an area where the Bengals are trying to find some new guys, and how do you think that plays out in terms of the roster for roster, position group by position group thing?
From a safety perspective, yeah, some new blood in there. Dax Hill and Nick Scott are going to be the starters in Cleveland. They're not going to play tomorrow, so I'm confident in saying those two guys will be starting. Jordan Battle and Tyson Anderson will likely be the backups. And so anytime you lose Jesse Bates and Von Bell, it's going to feel much different on the back end. I do think they are more athletic. They're faster on the back end. Dax Hill ran a 4.38. Nick Scott runs a 4.4. And they're versatile. Hill can line up at the nickel spot, guard tight ends, guard receivers. Then he can drop back and play that deep safety role as well. And so he might not be as good of a deep safety as Jesse Bates was, but I think he's a better man-to-man cover player. So Lou Anarumo is going to have some versatility to work with those two guys. And the big question mark, I think, coming into training camp was would Chidobe Awuzie be ready to go? Their top cornerback. He suffered a torn ACL on Halloween against Cleveland. I expect him on the field week 1. He's looked great throughout camp. Started participating in 11-on-11s this week, although I think he could have done it weeks ago. And so if that happens, well, then Cam Taylor-Britt settles in as your second corner. You feel good about that. We know about Mike Hilton. I'm still confident that this secondary can be solid, if not, a top 12 unit or something like that. So I still think they're really good. They're not maybe as good as they would have been with Bates and Bell. But to compare it to the Browns, you got Denzel Ward. You got some really good corners there behind him. I think at safety, probably, as weird as it sounds, I like the Bengals safeties more, even though it might not feel like it right now. And I like what you guys did. What's the guy from Kansas City? We were talking about him in free agency. Yeah, I liked Juan Thornhill too, so that was a good addition. But overall, I think it's pretty close. Denzel Ward might be the best player of either secondary, but it's pretty close on the back end.
James, what is the holdup on the Burrow contract extension here? And is it possible it's Burrow saying, hey, maybe I'll give you a discount, but you better sign – obviously they're going to sign – well, I shouldn't say obviously. They're going to sign Chase. But he probably wants them to sign Higgins too, and they should sign Higgins too. You let Tyler Boyd walk after this year. That's fine. But do you think there's any chance that he's saying, I want T. Higgins signed, and somehow they got a guarantee that Chase is signed next year too? Do you think that's part of it or nothing to do with it?
I think that, one, you're right. Chase is the priority when it comes to that wide receiver room, so I don't really question it. I mean, there's two guys that matter more than everybody else in that building, and it's Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. So agree there. I do think it is possible that Joe Burrow and his agent might have a framework with the Bengals where it's just like, okay, we have this. Focus on T. Higgins. Focus on the guy that might be harder to sign anyways, not because he's more valuable, but because of who his agent is. And David Mulugeta is Jesse Bates' agent, and obviously negotiations between the Bengals and Bates. They wanted to keep Bates long-term. Didn't work out. They had 2 years to do it. So maybe Burrow is going that route. It wouldn't shock me. I think that, fans have floated the idea of like handshake deals and all of those. I don't think that can happen because you have multiple agents and guys that are, these agents are trying to get their guys the most money. So I get that part of it. But could I see Burrow saying, okay, we're close, focus on T, we'll get this done before the start of the regular season? That would not shock me because I think he's going to try to do what he can to help the team out. That doesn't mean taking a $10 million haircut every year, but I think he'll help any way he can realistically without taking a huge discount.
James, on Wednesday's show with Tyvis, we did our AFC North kind of preview and rankings, and the conclusion as a set we came to was the Bengals and the Browns, talent-wise, probably on the same, right around the same tier. I think both said Cincinnati's a little more talented. G said Cleveland's a little more talented, but Cincinnati, Cleveland, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh was how we have conclusively, despite a little variations, argued the division will probably end up. From a Cincinnati perspective, or looking at it from a perspective other than ours, how do you see the four teams in the AFC North, and how would you project them to finish the season?
I would have the Bengals first, but it's tough because I think the AFC North is head and shoulders above everybody else. I know people say AFC West or AFC East, excuse me. I know the NFC West got a love last year and it didn't deliver. The North is going to deliver, and I think all 4 teams are really talented, and there aren't many question marks. Like this Bengals team, it's the least amount of question marks that I've for a team that I've covered ever. We're talking about like third down running back, replacing Samaje Perine, backup offensive lineman. Like it's stuff that it's like, okay, well, every team has to go through some of those things. But I'll take the Bengals first. I think Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have the edge because I give Lamar, I don't even want to say the benefit of the doubt, but I know why he wasn't out there. And so if it's Lamar Jackson or Deshaun Watson, and to me it comes down to quarterback when 2 teams are close, I would take Lamar. So I would put the Ravens second, the Browns third. But here's the problem, is I know the Steelers culture is legitimate. The Steelers culture adds a couple of wins every single year, and the Browns have a question mark at quarterback. So I could see, even though I would put the Steelers fourth, I could see them finishing first or second in this division. If some weird things happen, if Burrow comes back and he's not necessarily as effective, or if Pickett just has a really good year. So I think all 4 teams are capable of winning the division, but I'd probably have it Cincinnati, Baltimore, Cleveland, and then Pittsburgh.
What is the win variance for, you would say, for the Browns? What is the highest you could envision them in wins and losses, and what is the lowest, you kind of the floor for Browns in this division?
If Deshaun Watson is the Deshaun Watson that was getting the Houston Texans into the playoffs every single year and just a nightmare for opposing defenses, then they could easily be in the double digits because I like their weapons. They have the best running back in the game, and by that I mean runner. I don't think you could take anyone else over Nick Chubb. Now, Christian McCaffrey, you can do different things with him. I get that, and there's some other guys in that mix. But to me, Nick Chubb's the best running back, and that matters with Deshaun Watson in that offense. And so I think that offense could be pretty dynamic with Amari Cooper. And obviously they've added some pieces over the past couple of years. So we'll see there. But if that happens, 11 wins? Like they could win the division, and 11 wins might get it done because I think these North teams are going to beat up on each other. The low end, 6, something like that, probably 6 wins if Watson isn't the same or there's injuries or whatever the case is. But they added to the defensive line. I know there's a question mark about Kevin Stefanski up there as well. We'll see. But overall, I think it's they should be pretty good. It's more about culture, Stefanski and Watson. If I know those things, I think the Browns will be right in the mix in a tough AFC.
All right, James, the host of the Locked On Bengals. Last thing, we talked about it. You mentioned it in the beginning. You think he's going to play. Percentage chance that Burrow plays week 1. Is it 100% or no?
Oh, it's 100%, barring him tripping, at home or something happening where he re-aggravates it. Like if he just continues to do what he's doing and doesn't re-aggravate anything, then yeah, he's playing. And I think that's exactly what everybody expects in the building. Go ahead.
It's such a certainty, how come he's not practicing at all? They're just being extra cautious?
I don't think
practicing. Go ahead.
I don't think he's all the way back yet. I think that he's probably not even sore anymore. I mean, he's moving around fine. And we saw him go through warm-ups a few weeks ago. So I think he's good there. But yeah, I think it's a cautious approach because you don't want this to linger. And so why not just keep him shut down? He's still working out. He's just not doing it in front of us. Like I know he's throwing and going through, multiple different throwing sessions a week and lifting and doing all of those things. I just think from a go stand in the heat and practice full go, give him as long as you can, which he's creeping up on that month mark. It happened on July 27th. So we're creeping up on that full month mark, and then I think we might see him next week early on, Wednesday, Thursday, something like that. That's their first practice, by the way, of next week is Wednesday.
There you go. James does one of the best podcasts on Locked On, without a doubt. Check out Locked On Bengals. James, thanks, buddy. Good to see you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, fellas. Appreciate it. Sorry I was late. I apologize. That won't happen again.
It's all right. You got it. James Rapien.
We do got to set up the Ben Baby versus James race. We do have to make that happen.
He says it wouldn't even be a competition.
I got to text. I'm texting Ben right now.
How old is Ben, by the way? James
is
is like your age, I think.
Ben's a little older than me.
Yeah. All right. So that, I mean, does anybody besides us care about that?
No, just for fun.
No.
I'm just curious.
Yeah. Mixon's agent crushed Ben. Did you talk to him about that?
I didn't hear
I
what he
did.
said. What was it about?
Well, Ben was reporting on the legal play out, and I guess
Ben, I will say this. Ben, in terms of fans, he probably doesn't get a ton of support because he's clearly like the one Bengals beat reporter that's not a fan.
Yeah.
Like, he probably gets a lot of the crap that I get. Or
he did this at A&M. He was the best journalist on the A&M beat and the
Right.
most hated because
It's clear he's not rooting for the team.
He asked the tough questions.
Yeah, right.
He would never sugarcoat anything.
Right.
Like Ben is a journalist through and through
Yeah.
by the book.
All right.